This is by President Calvin Coolidge. He said, "No one is compelled to choose the profession of a police officer, but having chosen it, everyone is obliged to live up to the standard of its requirements." The names on this wall, this list, did that. The officers we have in our department live up to that every day. So I thank them. Again, it's a fine force. It's a great group of men and women. They support this community. This is a great community. We appreciate the support you give us. At this time, we're going to turn the microphone over to Holly Miktarian. Holly Miktarian's husband worked for us for a brief while. I was privileged to be his training officer that short time he was here. He was killed in the line of duty by just a vile piece of humanity.
It's an honor to be here. I've never had an opportunity to see this memorial here, and it's just beautiful. Very well put together. Not to mention the new K-9 memorial over here to my left. Really cool. My husband was a K-9 officer, and I know he, for one, would really appreciate the dogs having a memorial to honor them. I also have to say that I love the thin blue line flags along Broad Street. I think that's awesome. And I think Chief Noga's in the back somewhere. I think maybe we could persuade him to get them for our city next year, maybe. Hi, Chief. This week is National Police Officer Memorial Week. Thousands of survivors are in Washington, D.C. right now to honor their fallen heroes, and many local cities like the Falls have memorial services. I have attended countless services throughout the past 6 years, and I'm very ashamed to say that when I was a police officer, I didn't give much thought to this week. It is so important, and I hope there isn't another officer out there who isn't aware of how important it is. We have to make a promise to never forget our fall. Josh was found laying in the driveway with several shots to the head and his body. My Josh was left there laying in the driveway alone to die like an animal. The suspect, Ashford Thompson, stated to police that my husband was rude to him, and therefore he shot him, feeling that that was justified. The coroner reported the first shot was to Josh's forehead. Thompson also rested the muzzle of the gun on my husband's head and pulled the trigger several more times. Thompson then got back into his vehicle with one handcuff on his wrist and drove away. That handcuff would later be a great piece of evidence, as my husband had his badge number engraved on his handcuffs. Josh's gun was still holstered when they found him, and K-9 Baggio was in the cruiser. My Josh was intelligent and strong. He was always making you laugh, and he had an enormous amount of friends. Josh knew his job. He wasn't lazy when it came time to get it done. He knew everything there was to know about being a police officer, and I would be lying if I didn't admit to calling him a few times while on duty myself to ask him a question about an arrest I was having. I remember being woken up at 3 in the morning on July 13th, 2008. It was supposed to be my first day back to work since maternity leave. Sergeant Mark Trundle, who's now retired from Talmadge PD, was knocking on my door and informed me Josh had been hurt and I needed to come with him. I gathered myself and our 3.5-month-old baby, and we went to Metro Hospital. I remember asking the doctors to cover Josh up because I didn't want to see what the monster had done to him. I couldn't remember him that way ever. I remember holding his hand in the emergency room and being mad that my warm-blooded Armenian husband was cold. That just wasn't how my Josh was supposed to feel. Ashford Thompson was captured within an hour of killing my husband. Brothers and sisters in blue came from all over surrounding communities to aid Twinsburg that morning. I am forever grateful to all of them that did everything they did that morning. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, and months turned into 2 years until the killer of my husband, Ashford Thompson, was given the death penalty for his actions. It was unbelievably gratifying to stand up in front of him at sentencing and tell him exactly what I thought. From a widow's perspective, a police officer's perspective, the mother of our only child, and as a human being, I will never understand his actions that early morning, and nor will I ever forgive him. I continue to patiently wait for the arrival of the day when he is gone from this world. It is an evil that this world does not need. I'll never forget my husband Josh. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't, because our daughter is his mini-me, a spitting image of him, with the exception of his bald head. I'm trying my best to mold her into a good person and to one day send her off into this world. She is just like her dad. She is humorous, a social butterfly at school, and ornery in true Josh fashion. I'm always talking about Josh with her and including her in as many memorials and events as I can. When we aren't attending an event, she has her Twinsburg police, aunts, and uncles to remind her of her daddy and the wonderful Miktarian family to keep his spirit alive. I'd like to end my speech with the names of fallen officers from Ohio who died serving and protecting us on this date. On this date, in 1927, Patrolman Olin C. Wilson from the Cincinnati PD was killed by gunfire. On this date, in 1966, Patrolman Clifton T. Miller from the Rossford PD was killed in a vehicle pursuit. And on this date, in 1971, Patrolman William Nagy of the Cleveland PD was killed by gunfire. Also, may Officer Goldwig, Officer Chance, Officer Case, Officer Weiland, and Officer Grimes never be forgotten. We need to make the promise to never forget. Thank you.